What's up guys, it's BT here, and this is the review of the hype machine that is the glorious GMMK Pro. Glorious has been the people's champ for a while now. They see what's popular within a certain market, and then they aim to make a product that is in high demand at a lower cost so that it's more accessible to more people. It started with the mice like the Model O. They've also dabbled in keyboards before with their 60% hot swap, which I give them credit for. Not many people were doing that at the time, and it was readily available, but that board kind of catered more towards the everyday user. But now as time has gone on, more people are getting deeper into the mechanical keyboard hobby and thus want something a little bit more premium and premium looking. One of the hottest keyboards in the mechanical scene last year and the winner of the Mech Madness last year was the Satisfaction 75, a 75% keyboard with a knob. So naturally that was a keyboard that they tried to kind of capture within the GMMK Pro. Who can blame them though? Those things sold out within seconds. So good guy Glorious is like, you know what? We need to get more of these knob 75% keyboards out to the common person. Something else that's become increasingly popular is gasket mounting, by far my favorite mounting type on any keyboard. We'll get into the benefits of that later, but for now I just want to say that you don't really see something like this with stabilizers at the price of $170 retail. Most likely something like this would be around $250 to $350. So you can understand the hype and also the concern of the community when something like this comes out at this price tag. Now I heard that the batches are delayed about 2 weeks. They were originally supposed to ship out today, but I heard that they are at the dock right now. It's gonna take another week to 2 weeks for the first batch to come out and ship. And they're gonna have flex batches and another batch coming up, and you can reserve those for $70, which is also pretty nice. So with all that being said, let's see what $170 of your hard-earned cash gets you with the GMMK Pro. Now they come in two different colors, a black slate and a white ice. The white ice is more of a silver, kind of confused by that. Why not just call it like the silver bullet or something like that? I don't know. My personal favorite out of the two is the white ice, or the silver bullet. The keyboard has a very nice weight and feel to it with its CNC aluminum build. It has the Glorious etched into the bottom of the case. I like that they didn't do anything crazy on the top or on the sides. They could have easily put their logo somewhere. Because they didn't do this, it keeps the aesthetic of the keyboard very, very clean and professional. You also get the PCB and aluminum plate in there, as well as their new Ghost stabilizers, which are PCB mounted and they're factory lubed with their own G lube. So if you want to just take this out of the box and throw in some switches, hot swap hose, now's your time. I see you. And you just throw some keycaps on there and it's ready to go. This is really good as a starter board because it will allow you to try a bunch of different switches out since it is hot swap. You also get a switch puller and keycap puller as well as a braided cable in the box. Now knobs are becoming increasingly popular and Glorious is also selling different knob colors as well. The gold one looks sexy as fuck. The knob is etched, giving it some texture, and you can press down on it. It all feels very, very solid. So the first thing I really did was look at the build quality of the keyboard. The feel of the keyboard is very nice and has a great weight to it. Like I said, it feels very, very premium. It has RGB diffusers on the side. So it's like a Satisfaction combined with another highly popular mechanical keyboard, the Orion, which I am a huge fan of. So they took two concepts and put them into one. I don't know if they meant to do that, but they nailed it. The GMMK is cleaner than a McDonald's bathroom floor. Wait, I did that wrong. The top and bottom of the case is held in by screws. Upon opening the keyboard, you'll see that there's a daughter board with a pin connector that allows the USB to sit lower and in the middle of the keyboard, which again, I'm a huge fan of that design. So don't be scared. You can unplug this and plug it back in once you're done doing what you need to do with the keyboard. They've also added in some foam in the bottom of the keyboard to help with the resonance of the keyboard, and it does help. And they also added in a piece between the PCB as well, which again helps soak up some of that exit sound that may come from the keyboard. Since this is an aluminum case, these cases are more susceptible to like an echo sound after you hit a switch. So it's nice that you don't have to go out and buy a whole nother piece of foam just to put into your case like some other keyboards. The PCB and the plate are screwed together around the edges and also in the middle of the keyboard with some posts, which is what you would normally see when you have a hot swap gasket mounted keyboard to keep the PCB and the plate together. Now why people love gasket mount so much is that the top and bottom cases are sandwiching the plate in place with a foam on the post instead of having screws. The gaskets are located all around the top and bottom of the case. That means there's less metal on metal action going on, which should lead to a more softening typing experience and better overall sound because you're not going to have that metal on metal action going on. If you saw my interview with Garrett from Omnitype, he had a great analogy for this. It's like having two metal poles rubbing together. That would be like a top mount or a tray mount like you'll see like a KBD Fan 67 or a Ducky 1-2 Mini. Or you can rub a pillow against the pole right? Which one do you think would sound better and more pleasing to the ear? Who said metal poles? You're trolling, right? So once you remove the plate from the PCB and you unscrew everything, you can then remove the plate and mess around with the foam. You can take it out or leave it in, whatever you want. Glorious is also offering different plate materials, which is really cool, like brass for another $50 or polycarbonate at $20, which is the one that I usually get when I'm getting a keyboard, polycarbonate. Because it's a softer material and more flexible, I find that it's more pleasing to type on, and it also gives a thockier sound, which is my favorite, instead of a clack like a brass or an aluminum. For me, the difference between brass and aluminum doesn't justify the $50 price tag, as the sound profile, like I said, didn't change much. Also, I felt like the softer bottoming out wasn't even worth the extra $20. And of course, I'll show you all the differences between the sound signatures later on in the video. Linear, of course, is going to sound better on a polycarbonate, and tactile is going to sound better on brass or aluminum. But like I said, the sound differences are very minimal. I actually prefer the aluminum over all the other ones. In the Glorious software though, you can change the layers as well. You can change the knob button. By default, when you press it down, it mutes your music, but also you can change this to anything that you want. And of course, the volume knob can't be changed. It's always going to be a volume knob. But what else would you use a knob for? Let me know. In the software, you'll also be able to change the polling rate as well as the lighting effects, which look really cool on this keyboard. It gets really bright. Of course, it shines through the diffusers on the side as well as around the keycaps. If you do want to switch over to some shine through keycaps, this does have per key LED, so it shines very, very bright. All right, so next I just want to tell you guys about my experience with this keyboard now that we got all the nitty gritty out of the way. What's that saying called? Do you want the good news or you want the bad news first? So let's go with the good news first. The layout is great. 75% keeps the form factor small while giving you the F row up top as well as 4 keys along the right side. The angle is also very comfortable to type on. The keyboard, in my opinion, looks amazing. That knob. Now for the not so great. There's a mandatory firmware update that you have to install before you use the keyboard, and I tried it on my black keyboard and it bricked my keyboard right away. It had some issues before that with not registering my keys randomly or just going off by themselves minutes later after I had hit it. So there's a lot of chattering going on and just overall issues with the PCB that I think were fixed by the firmware. I don't know, I can't even tell you. So yeah, halfway through the update, it bricked my keyboard. Okay, I tried resetting it using the reset button, doesn't work. So I can only imagine if this were to happen to you. You get this keyboard, you're waiting for months, only to have your keyboard arrive, and within seconds you have a fancy looking paperweight. When you're in gaming scenarios, you need your keyboard to be performing at a certain level, right? Especially if you're gonna be competing with this. And I was noticing sometimes in game, it would just stop working. I'd be like, wait, what? Like, I'd just be looking around like, wait, oh, I thought I hit W, but it didn't work. And that can cost you in game, right? Or just even when typing on the keyboard, I would look back and there would be so many grammatical errors because some keystrokes just didn't get registered. So now let's say you have a paperweight keyboard, you have to send it back. It's time, it's energy, it's resources. That's just unnecessary. So now I'm scared to flash my other keyboard, the silver one, but at the same time, it's acting up, it's having those same issues. So you have a mandatory update with the possibility of bricking your new keyboard, and it's deleting things on its own. It's putting keystrokes on its own, and I'm not even touching the keyboard. I have no doubt that Glorious will fix this issue. I'm thinking that the firmware update that they sent out is actually going to be fixing this, but there's also that possibility of bricking your keyboard. So you might have a different experience from me. I can only report what's happening to me. In my units, this is what's happening, okay? The next thing I want to talk about is the sound. Sound is subjective. Some people prefer clack, some people prefer thock. It is what it is. And you know, it's not going to affect your gameplay in any way, let's be real. In the enthusiast space though, people do care about sound. They do care about how it feels. So you really want to look at what camp you fall in. Are you somebody that cares about the sound and feel, or do you just want something that looks cool and it'll satisfy your gaming needs? So naturally, I tried Glorious's own Panda tactile switches in here, as well as the highly regarded GMMK linear switches, which have become the standard recently. The Pandas have stock factory lube, and the Evas are lubed and filmed with Krytox 205 grade 0 lube. I'm using Glorious's new Pbt Keycaps, which come in a bunch of different gradients, really sexy keycaps. I'm gonna be reviewing all of their accessories later on in this week, so stay tuned for that. I wanna keep this video kind of concise and on the keyboard because there's a lot to cover. But enough talking, I tried them on different plays so you guys can hear what they sound like, so enjoy. So as you can tell, the new Go stabilizers are pretty good on the backspace, enter, and shift keys. In any keyboard though, even in custom builds, the hardest thing to nail is the spacebar, and I feel like no company has really gotten that down yet completely, except for maybe like Leopold. So you'll probably have to do some modding there. Since the stabilizers are PCB mounted, hallelujah. You can replace these with Durocs, but Durocs are actually a little bit too thick, so you're gonna have to shave those down so they'll fit within the plate. For me, there's just something that feels wrong about that, so I'm not going to do that. I know that they're going to be releasing plates to allow for more space for third-party stabilizers. If I were a beginner, I probably love the sound of this keyboard. It's definitely better than the Drop Alt in that regard. You also have to remember the price of this keyboard, and it's something I have to do. It's $170, so I think when the GMMK Pro was announced, people were looking for $300 worth of sound and a $170 keyboard, which is where a lot of the hype was coming from because it kind of mimicked the Satisfaction 75. I don't know if that's the case. I think it's more of a $170 keyboard that sounds like $170 keyboard. I will go as far as to say if I had to choose between the Alt or this, I would actually choose this. I don't know what it is with entry-level keyboards these days, but they love plate mounted stabs. I love that they went with PCB mounted stabs. This should be more of what the standard should look like when it comes to custom mechanical keyboards in the entry space. The Drop Alt also has the integrated plate, whereas this one is gasket mounted, which is way better. If they can fix the problems with the PCB and make the software solid to where it won't break your keyboard, and they can fix this chattering problem that makes keystrokes go off by themselves or not go off at all or go off a minute later, then $170 is right in line with what this keyboard is offering, and it allows you to dip your toe into the water and see if you really like custom keyboards before dropping $300 to $400 on a middle or to high-end board. But I love that they are trying to be a one-stop shop for newcomers that are new to the space, which of course has been their whole mission from the beginning. Just like I said, putting and giving you guys quality at a lower price. As of right now, personally, the board is unusable. I want to get with them and discuss how to update the firmware more effectively and safely, because I don't want y'all's keyboard to mess up. You know, you just spent $170 on it, so the last thing you want is for it to arrive DOA. Alright guys, that's gonna do it for my thoughts on the GMMK Pro. Worth $170 for sure, but at the time of launch, it has issues. Beware.